Sandy and I, one of the reasons our travels have brought us so much joy is the people we've connected with. Open your arms and your heart to the world and let it in.
Tips from Trestle is brought to you by Wiseox AI, Advantage Trust GPO, the Dining with Dementia Workshop, and the 100% Leader. Welcome to Tips from Trestle, the Senior Living Food and Hospitality Podcast. This podcast explores the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and the community experience. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. My goal for this podcast: educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living. How? By bringing the resident and customer experience to the front of mind in our industry. We should bring the passionate spirit of food and hospitality to everything that we do and everyone we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. On today's episode of Tips from Trestle, I am excited to share this conversation with you. Usually we're talking to industry professionals, vendors, partners, operators about what they do and how they can support creating and elevating the resident experience in senior living. But today's conversation is from a couple of ladies who get it. You may have seen them on TikTok or Instagram in one of their many, many journeys across the globe. The traveling nanas, Sandy and Ellie, are my guests today on the podcast. It was amazing to talk to them about their experiences, what drove them to decide to get out there and see the world, how they built their friendship. It was amazing to hear their words of wisdom. And I even got them at the end to tell you as operators how to maybe take a step back and look at how you do resident experience and how to really keep the adventure alive for those living in your community. So this was an amazing conversation to have, and I hope you get as much listening to it as I got out of having it with Sandy and Ellie, the traveling nanas. Let's get into it. Thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Thank you. Thank you. We're excited about being here.
I appreciate it. I'm excited to talk to you ladies because your story is amazing. I think senior living operators need to hear it. I think they need to learn from what you are teaching us about being an older adult and how you can still live your best life and do all those things. But let's first start where it starts, right? The origin story of the two of you. And so you met over 25 years ago, empty nesters, widows. And so I had this idea of like best friends at first sight when I did my research. So talk about your friendship, how it evolved, and how it took you to 50-ish countries, all 7 continents. Just where did it begin and how did that start?
Well, actually, it began with the loss of Sandy's husband. And you might tell him just briefly how we met. Yes, my husband, we'd had a visiting missionary at church. And when we got home, my husband was so impressed with that. He said, Sandy, we have to start taking our grandchildren on mission trips in the summertime.
Okay.
Well, I'm a busy doctor. I don't have time for mission trips. But I didn't say that to my husband. And I said, what type of mission trips? And he said, well, I don't know, honey, but I'm sure there's something that we could do that would be of benefit to missionaries and a great experience for our grandchildren. So he had planted that seed in my heart. Shortly thereafter, he became ill and died. And he had been dead about 6 months when someone told me about a medical missions workshop in Dallas. So I found myself in that medical missions workshop in Dallas. And after a little bit, I thought, I don't think I'm ready for this. And then I saw this sign that said Africa, and I knew I didn't want to go to Africa. Okay, so I was actually headed toward the front door when this rich voice behind me said, hello, my name is Cully Hamby. What's yours? And I turned around, and his smiling wife, Ellie, was standing there next to him. And I said, well, my name is Sandy Heaslip. And they said, let us tell you about our work in Zambia. And I said, don't waste your time. I go on a mission trip. I need someplace very safe because I'm going to be taking grandchildren. And in unison, they said, Oh, Zambia is very safe. We take our grandchildren there every year.
Okay.
We went to Zambia, and I can tell you, if you go and we're in the bush in Xavier, doing this medical mission was going on for 30 years, so I've been directing it from the beginning. And if you survive the bush of Africa, sleeping out in tents and over running water, latrines, and all of that, and no electricity, you can do things. Okay, so we became friends, but not really best friends because we lived 60 miles apart. Yeah, unfortunately, my husband died about 5 years later in an accident. And Sandy was setting up her geriatric clinic at the new hospital in Abilene. And she called me and she says one day, about a month after my husband died, and said, Ellie, I've got a deal for you. And I said, what? And she says, this is what I'm happening. I'm not going to move from my home in Eastland. So I need a bed 2 nights a week. And if you give me a bed, I'll take you out to eat. That I said yes.
Okay.
Of course, Sandy and I always try to say yes. It's amazing what you miss out on if you don't say yes.
I don't know. Yeah.
So anyway, that's how we really got to be best friends. Drinking coffee late at night, workaholics. And it was your idea, Sandy. Tell about our first travel.
First travel together besides the mission trip. Ellie had told me about some of the trips she and her husband had taken that sounded so intriguing. So one evening I said, Ellie, I have always wanted to ride the Trans Siberian train. Is that something you would want to do with me? And she said, well, yes. So we went on the Trans Siberian train. Second class. No, we're second class driver. Okay.
That's good to know.
And that's when we ran into a problem in Siberia, the Mongolian border with the KGB, and a crime on the Trans Siberian. And we were interrogated and searched by the KGB. I guarantee the KGB got you in Syria. And you're wondering, are you going to be chopping rocks in a Syrian prison? We're not sure. It was all said and done. And after about 8 hours, they realized we were innocent and no connection with the crime that we never to this day still don't know about. We're sure at all the details. We realized, hey, we got this. We can manage it. We can have the contact with the KGB interrogation for 7 hours in Siberia. We can manage to do other stuff.
It takes that whole phrase of thick as thieves to a whole new level.
Yeah, that's right. So that was how this whole adventure. Then we just had the confidence we can do what we think we wanted.
That's awesome. So a lot of people talk about their bucket lists and never really act on them, right? I started my own company to check off an item, which is great, but I still have a bunch of stuff on it. You guys have this leap of faith moment where you said, all right, we're going to do this. So tell me a little bit about what your family's thought about doing that, especially since you are a little bit older, maybe you're going to go out unsupervised, that kind of thing. What is that leap of faith? What made you do that?
Well, actually, Sandy's again. I'm the more adventuresome one, but Sandy's the one who comes up with all the ideas.
Okay.
So Sandy, gets around the world. You tell him how that started.
All right.
Yeah.
So we've made those other trips when we were in our late 60s and early 70s, back when we were young.
Yeah.
So in anticipation of getting old and turning 80, I mentioned to Ellie one evening, wouldn't it be fun to go around the world in 80 days at age 80?
Okay.
We had every hotel reservation made, every airline reservation made, and COVID shut it down. COVID didn't shut us down. So we made the trip the following year, and our theme was around the world in 80 days, 81 and still on the run. But to answer your question, how did especially one of my children handle it?
Yes.
I gave her an 80-page notebook of our itinerary with every flight number, every hotel reservation, so that she could relax.
You knew where you were going to be, when you were going to be there. That helps. So okay. So you're doing 80 days around the world, 81 and what'd you say? 81 and
Yeah, I'm still on the run.
Still on the run. 81 and still on the run. So what's the craziest, wildest moment where you guys looked at each other and said, I can't believe we're actually doing this right now out of all of those days?
We've had on around the world, We didn't have any like really scary moments. Things went really well. We'd had the earlier KGB, and then we were in Syria when the war started, sleeping in the Syrian desert. And
Wow.
that one was when we really were thinking, what are we doing? But the wildest moment on the around the world was, I think, when we really realized that we're doing this.
Yeah.
You know, we're about halfway. I remember the halfway mark, and we said, "We did it. We've done it this far." And how did we ever dream of something this crazy? And it's actually happening. So
That's great. So, what was the wildest moment maybe in all of your travels? Because obviously you haven't stopped. So, do you have one, Sandy, that sticks out for you?
Well, the one that Ellie was talking about when we were in Syria,
Mm.
she had ridden on a camel for 3 hours in the desert.
she got off
After
because she
50
walked.
After 15 minutes, I said, Ellie, I can walk in this desert more easily than I can ride. So we had a 3-hour trek in the Syrian desert, sleep in a Bedouin tent.
With a 13-year-old boy who's no English. I'm Sandy and I and a 13-year-old boy.
Okay.
And not tourist camels. These are the real deal camels.
And we slept in a Bedouin tent, and next door to us was a Syrian family who were our hosts. They did not speak any English.
Ooh, wow.
So then the next day, when we went back to Palmyra, so we discovered that the war had started. So tell them that story.
What happened was I looked at internet, and the sprinter said it's safe to travel in Syria, who was a professor at the University of Global Studies. And so we trusted him. And then there was the New York Times, and all this had happened in Damascus about 2 hours after we left Damascus. And then we thought, oh, maybe it's just a one and done. But we kept staying in Palmyra. Nobody was there. We were having a blast. And as you know, we're budget travelers. We're staying in small inns and things. In fact, our average cost for a hotel per person per night was around the world with $29 a person.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that gives you an idea where, as we decided, oh, I think we need to get out of here. I think that this is really starting. So we're trying to pay a bill, and we stayed with Muhammad at his little hotel. And he said, we don't take no ATMs in Palmyra and with credit cards, no credit cards.
Oh,
Said,
no.
well, we have to pay. And then we got to get to Jordan, and we don't know how. Because we came on public buses
Right.
in the Syria. We were riding public buses in Syria. Now there's war going on. There's not much public bus.
Right.
So he says, I'm going to take you with a driver to Damascus, to the old square where it all started, okay, in
Yeah.
Damascus. But there's an ATM there. And so hopefully if you go early, before the shooting, before
The
we
shooting
go
starts.
5 hours, we drive Palmyra to Damascus. We got there. It's lined with AK-47s. We're thinking, oh my goodness. And so Muhammad, the driver, got out, told us to stay in the car. So he got out and he talks to some of them for about 2 minutes, but he said, then pretty soon they come smile, put down their AK-47s and motion for us to come. So we jump out of the car, we run in there, and believe it or not, the ATMs work. In Damascus, we
Wow.
got money. Then Muhammad had told us, okay, then you leave, the money that you owe me and all that.
Yeah.
Then, in order to get out of the country, there is going to be a white unmarked car parked on the side of the road in Damascus in your area. And there'll be a guy standing by the door. When you see that white unmarked car, the door open, and a man standing there, you get in the car. And we saw the car, and we got in the car, and it took us out of the country.
Wow.
And 11 years later, that war was still going on.
Yeah, that is pretty wild. So I wanted to ask you, like, the listeners are mostly operators of senior living communities, and when we talk about the experience for the residents living there, and so I want you to think a little bit about if they're looking for ways to inspire their residents, what can they do to create meaningful programming that you think from your story for those residents that are looking for that adventure, looking for those unique experiences?
Well, first of all, I was a geriatrician before I retired,
Okay.
and I loved having patients in long-term care facilities of all levels.
Mm-hmm.
And when I gave talks to the new employees, and I gave educational talks to the new employees, my thrust of my talk was caring about your residents is the first step in caring for your residents.
Yeah.
And so if they're not able to tell you, learn from their families. Were they professional football players? Were they pilots in World War II? Were they the widows of pilots in World War II?
No.
Were they professional piano players? Learn about your residents and have conversations. I had a resident in one facility who had been the weatherman on the local TV station.
Okay.
So I would ask him about the weather.
Seems so simple, but it's connecting them back to that. I love it.
But we do encourage people just to get out of your easy chair, make some plans, step out of your comfort zone, make some plans, and see them.
No, I love that. And I think that's sometimes as operators, we get stuck in that mindset, right? We think we need to keep them safe. We want to create a comfortable environment for them, but we need to think outside that box. And so rethinking that framework, like when you think about operators creating that environment of safety and comfort, what recommendations or what suggestions would you make to the operators to let them be more adventurous, less risk adverse when they think about how they can engage the people living there?
A conversation is wonderful, and draw those residents into the conversation and what they would enjoy today if they had the opportunity. Let them talk about it.
Yeah.
My 13-year-old grandson, who was legally blind, on a 14-state tour to the Western United States to play the piano in a nursing home in 14 states. And I told him he had to learn a repertoire of music from the 1930s and the 1940s for their memory, for their joy to get involved. So do whatever it takes to help them step out of the easy chair into whatever environment in their setting they can to get out of their comfort zone and have some fun.
I love that. You know, one of the things we didn't mention was the following you have online, right? And it's inspired all ages. So it's very intergenerational in your following. And so when you think about all of that connectivity that you've experienced, what do you think we can do in our communities to strengthen those intergenerational connections? And why is that so important for someone as young as you ladies are?
Just to answer that, one thing that has blown us away on our travels is how we have connected to the younger people. And so much of the time, the older we get, the more we're not important in our values and our thoughts and things. And I think, I just think that being around younger people, that is just a huge thing. And that's what we found when we were traveling. I mean, the most time that we were stopped for wanting pictures and autographs and whatever was young guys in the 30s. And we were like their grandmother. But I think we missed out on once a person gets older, and then that's all their community is. But I think interacting with that younger people, really, that gives us lots of fun and encouragement. We're known as a TikTok traveling nana. I a huge following on TikTok and videos with 6.4 million views and it's very interesting. That reaches the younger generation. The TikTok does. It's all about friendship. They all want to be their bestie. And this can be us. Then when we do it at our Instagram meet, it's that middle generation where, oh, maybe my parents can do this or I can do this. And then what we find with older people, that we brought joy in their lives. So that just listening to us and following us and things. And so I think sometimes we just need to encourage people to reach out to things and give them enjoyment and go for that.
I love that connection. It's so important.
Really.
And I think sometimes in long-term care facilities and independent living facilities or seniors, allowing, like on Halloween, allowing children to come in for trick-or-treating, it's a great experience to have that generational experience again.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot or anything big. I think sometimes as operators, we start thinking big picture, like how do we make this big grand gesture? And it's really more about those like small moments of connection. Well, as we wrap up here, ladies, you're still on the go, right? And so you're not going to slow down anytime soon. So what's your next act, if you will, right? What do you think is going to be the thing the listeners take away from here, or what you want them to take away from your journeys, from your book, from following all your videos online on TikTok and Instagram?
Well, I think one thing about our book is a great example of reading and encouraging people to say yes to life, to love people.
Yeah.
Sandy and I, one of the reasons our travels have brought us so much joy is the people we've connected with. Open your arms and your heart to the world and let it in. And I think so much of the time, and our book, we had no intentions. We did not. You think about writing a book. We were contacted a random house and said, this has to be a book and the world needs your voice.
Okay.
And we wanted to be your publisher. And so we just had this, and we really hope that's a good thing to do. And it's in this audio book too. So people can listen to it and get encouraged. And they'll love the stories because they're going to relate to them. Because we everywhere we go and when we travel, they always say, you're the oldest people that's ever done. We're the oldest people that's ever stayed here. So we're kind of used to the oldest want to do these things.
That's right. Physically old, young at heart.
Yes.
So where can they find the book? Tell us the title.
Here We Go is the name of it. It's on Amazon. You can go, all versions are. It's in large print. It's in hardcover. It's Kindle. It's audiobook. But Amazon, but it's sure it would target any of the books, any of those online. It's available. And we'd love for people to read it.
Absolutely. Ladies, I'm excited to listen to your presentation tomorrow and hear that message. And thanks for sitting down with me here on Tips from Trestle for this conversation.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So there it is, everybody. Another one in the books. Thanks again for tuning in. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.